Being gross is practically a requirement to get on TCAP, and the people I'm talking about today are no different. Trust me, some of these confessions are going to leave you in shock. And right on top of the list is this dude who indulged in some really disgusting stuff. Now this guy, Christopher Canon, is infamous in the TCAP community for his ridiculous excuse for being at the Sting House. And you're not gonna believe what he said.
I made some sweet tea, so just make yourself a glass.
Can I use your restroom?
As crazy as it sounded, he definitely said it. You see, this dude quickly tried to take his leave as soon as he knew where he landed. But of course, there was more to the story. At the time of the sting, Canon, who was 32 years old, held a media director role at a church as a volunteer, meaning that he worked closely with young teens, which is horrible knowing how many he could have made uncomfortable or even possibly put them in danger before he even showed up at the show. Now, this dude engaged in conversation with someone he believed was named Natalie, and this chick wasn't exactly an adult. Initially, Canon lied about his age, claiming to be 27, like that made anything better, but he continued communicating with the setup for several days. He delved into discussions about the setup's dating history and discouraged her from engaging in intimate activities. Can you believe that he actually advised her to wait until marriage? Maybe he thought this would portray him in a good light and somehow he could win her over. But sadly, the reality was totally different. Anyway, requesting a meeting the next day, this jerk referred to her affectionately as Little Boo and made assurances of providing protection. He even asked to set up some serious messed up, not to mention intimate questions.
He asks the girl if she's ever had an orgasm. The decoy says, "I don't think so," and Xavier01 says, "Good."
Canon inquired about the setup's intimate experiences, expressing approval when she responded negatively. But wait, there's more.
I'm not sure. Which is better?
We'll have to see where you fit best, if you know what I mean.
He even questioned her preferences regarding intimate positions, stating that they would determine the best fit upon meeting. I mean, like what even? In short, this freak's excitement knew no boundaries. He was so interested that he even showed up to the Sting House way earlier than they had planned. Now, remember, this is the same guy who went by the screen name Xavier01, and he would constantly ask the setup disgusting questions. And worst of all is that he believed his behavior was completely acceptable and, dare I say, normal. And then he was hit by a wave of suspicion.
Say what? Oh, I just gotta put this in the wash real quick. But I made some sweet tea if you want some.
He got all freaked out, thinking he might be getting set up and could end up behind bars for a long while. And so, Canon kept bugging the setup to call him, begging her to promise she wasn't a cop or trying to trick him. What's more, he also knew about shows where cops bust people exactly like him. It seemed like he was seriously worried about getting caught up in something bad, and for good reason too. But when they asked him why he was doing this sort of stuff, his response was absolutely disgusting.
I mean, just playing around with her, but my intention wasn't to do it. I didn't want to reject it.
While talking to the cops, Canon admitted he knew about the show, and yet that didn't stop him from showing up. He said that on his way to the place, he was trying to convince himself to bail because he knew deep down it was all kinds of messed up. What adds a scary element to the whole situation is that he was fully aware of his actions, and yet he chose to keep going in spite of it. He even said that he tried to reject the setup when they first began chatting online, and that he was only following her lead. When the male investigator questioned Canon's reason for asking his inappropriate questions, Canon downplayed his actions by completely brushing it off.
Trust me, I wanted to turn around.
He then even made the sign of the cross with his hands and promised that he wouldn't have any relationships with the setup in the future. But thankfully, they didn't take him at his word. But guess what? When it comes to being a horrible person, it turns out Canon was far from the only one. Because the next dude is up there with some of the worst morons who have ever showed up at the Sting House, maybe even topping the list. So this pathetic dude right here, James Rutherford, taught 6th graders at St. Margaret of York Catholic School in Loveland, Ohio. And he was about 26 when this whole situation went down. Now, this dude got all chatty online with someone he thought was Danica, but of course, this chick was a setup. And just when you thought he'd cross every boundary he could, he decided to set a new benchmark.
Getting on webcam.
And what does the 26-year-old do with his webcam? He starts putting on a show.
Can you believe that? This dude actually set up a webcam and flexed his muscles for her. I mean, he clearly didn't know what he was getting himself into. But this is where the whole thing gets really sketchy. After making plans to meet the girl, Rutherford started feeling that something just wasn't right.
Appears the man is having second thoughts. Could it be that he's actually having a change of heart and is questioning his own behavior?
Oh yeah, this moron was having major second thoughts about going through with his plan, just like our old pal Canon. The setup tried to get this moron to come on over, but quite a few hours went by and the team didn't hear from him. For a split second, they even assumed he could have had a change of heart, but you know what they say, a leopard never really changes its spots.
Where are you?
Oh, I'm just gonna go finish getting ready. I'll be right there.
Come here.
At first, when the setup didn't invite him over, he kept calling out to her. But as soon as he saw Chris come around the corner, he knew his world was about to soon fall apart.
Rutherford says he had a feeling this was a setup.
So Rutherford spilled the beans during his chat with Chris, saying he was in the middle of a divorce and just wanted to get out of the house. Classic move, right? But when Chris asked him what he had in mind, Rutherford pulled out the usual line, no plans for anything explicit. You know, the go-to excuse. Classic stuff, trying to play it cool in front of the cameras, like he didn't know he was already in the spotlight. And then when Chris asked him what he was doing for a living, well, he wasn't quite so forthcoming.
What do you do for a living, Jim?
I'd rather not say. Who do you work for?
I'll get to that in a minute.
No, I'd really like to know. I'm sure I'm on TV or something right now.
Anyway, Chris wasn't here for any of that nonsense. He once again asked the prick the same question, and this time, Rutherford's reply was shocking.
Just tell me what you do for a living.
I'm a teacher.
And what grade do you teach?
6th grade.
6th grade. So you teach kids about the same age as the girl you were coming to see.
Who knew, right? I mean, you could even see the pure shock on Chris's face. With that, Rutherford heads straight to the exit, and bam! The Dark County Sheriff's Office swooped in and arrested him. At first, this prick was all about battling it out in court against the charges, but you know how it goes. Eventually, he caved and owned up to it, pleading guilty. Surprisingly, given the intense stuff he said and did, his punishment wasn't as harsh as you'd expect. They slapped him with a 45-day stint in county jail, threw in 36 months of probation, and topped it off with a 10-year membership in Ohio's registry. Kind of a shame, honestly. Yeah, Rutherford was quite a handful, but the next jerk will definitely send shivers down your spine. So the man you're looking at is David, a 38-year-old man who builds tunnels around town. Now, this dude started chatting with our lovely setup, and he was pretty into it. To make himself seem more desirable, he went on to lie about his age and said he was 27. Wow, both him and Canon. Come on, come up with a more original number, you guys. Anyway, this bozo kicked things off by being a gentleman in the start and even managed to speak politely for a minute. But things soon took a turn.
Did it with a 15-year-old before, and I came real close to getting caught. I didn't have sex with her, everything but.
Oh man, this freak was so pathetic, I tell ya. He even admitted to the setup that he took part in something like this before, and even though he came close to getting caught. So nothing happened back then, he figured he could just do it all over again. You see, he thought luck was on his side, but he was soon about to be proven otherwise. But I cannot overlook how downright disgusting this dude was. He shared some really graphic ideas with the setup, something a grown man should never say to a woman of that age, or
Tracy.
I want all of you, Tracy, in every way.
at all, really. He eventually broached the topic of getting dirty by introducing a game he named Rock the Baby. Barf. What's more, he even suggested they move their little meetup to a hotel room or maybe drive out to someplace that was a little more discreet. Oh, trust me, you guys, this dude had everything planned out. And when he arrived at the staying house, the dude made sure to bring in the booze. When the setup promptly offered him the customary sweet tea, he disregarded the offer and loudly proclaimed his desire for intimacy. However, his expectations were shattered when he found himself face to face with Chris instead of his anticipated partner.
Should have a seat right over there, please. How you doing?
David tried to say he didn't know how old she was, but was immediately hit with his chat history. And just as Chris was reading excerpts from his chat, he did something absolutely unacceptable.
She asked me several things also.
Does that make it right?
No, and she invited me here.
The nerve of this guy to shift the blame onto the setup is absolutely insane. David attempted to clarify that he was unaware of her age, but Chris quickly exposed his chat history and something more.
Huh?
I have a fiance.
You have a fiance. And how do you suppose this is going to play when she finds out about this?
It's not going to play at all.
The fact he had a fiance, and yet he decided to do something like this is simply disgusting. but somehow he thought he was the one who was still in charge. Upon learning he would be featured on Dateline, he reacted with indirect indignation, questioning the legality of the sting operations. Despite claiming moments earlier to have a fiancée, Hilbish tried to defend his character by portraying himself as a lonely single father who succumbed to temptation. Eventually, David headed towards the exit and was subsequently arrested by the Harris County Sheriff's Office without any resistance. And now, it's time for the next guy on my list, and let's just say this one beats them all, and you're about to see why. Now, this guy thought he could outsmart Chris himself, which is just ridiculous. At the time, Monzi was 32 and was a self-employed math tutor who also indulged in substances. Yeah, not the best of combinations, huh? But this dude was into more than just blazing. Aside from pitching ideas to smoke stuff, he was also interested in getting to know the setup up close and personal, if you know what I mean. Like, how do such pricks even exist? At one stage, he got a bit suspicious and asked the setup for a special picture. But after a while, he felt better about things and ended up showing at the Sting House on a lazy Sunday afternoon. While the dude showed no hesitation to enter the house, once he was inside, his suspicion kicked into action. He casually asked the setup if he could check out the place, without waiting for much of a response. The dude then made a beeline straight for the curtain, wanting to check every nook and corner of the house. But what, or rather who, he saw there left him stunned.
Hey, how are you? I'm good. Good.
Have a seat right on that stool, please.
Sure.
I mean, the whole scene unfolded in a flash. From the initial greeting to the acknowledgement of things feeling off, to the casual request to snoop around, and finally, a directed move toward the curtain where Chris was lurking. And once Chris emerged, it was game on. The atmosphere shifted abruptly from cordial to intense, with Chris driving straight into a rapid-fire interrogation with Monzi. It was a swift transition from a seemingly casual entry to a sudden, serious questioning session.
Well, I'm here because I was slightly concerned.
Concerned about what?
Monzi defended his actions, and you won't believe what he had to say.
Here because I was slightly concerned.
Concerned about what?
Well, concerned because she's talking to people that are a lot older on the website.
Apparently, he was just concerned about her safety, that's all. He claimed he was a nice Samaritan attempting to lend a hand to the setup. Chris, however, knocked down Monzi's explanation with messages from his inappropriate chat log.
Cool and cute, too. I just know I could get in trouble even talking to you, you know.
Well, yes, of course, but you know, look, may I please leave? I'm not.
What's really funny here is he really thought he could lie out of this situation. Like, literally.
Police outside or anything?
I'll get to that.
Please, sir, can you please just tell me? Because I really can't.
Well, I think people like him should definitely be locked up. During his interrogation, Monzi's confidence took a nosedive, which was evident through his distress.
No, because I'm going to get arrested. I know what's going to happen. Sir, I really can't afford to do this. I can't.
But even then, he kept trying to keep up his lies and kept saying that he was a good person who would have not done anything to hurt her or put her in danger. But the cops, they weren't having any of this nonsense.
I'm gonna get arrested going that way.
Safe to say, he sure faced some serious consequences and was arrested shortly. However, Monzi got away with minimal charges as his chat logs didn't have anything too graphic. At most, they talked in code, and this wasn't evidence enough to charge him with something serious. So these were some of the most gross people we've ever seen on the show. And the only reason I left some really obvious ones out is because I've been covering the most popular morons on the show on my channel. So don't forget to scroll down and check out some of the other craziest things on the show. But who do you think was the most disgusting of them all? Don't forget to let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications. Also, if you found this video crazy, trust me, the next post right here is gonna be even crazier.